Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Friday afternoon. Although if you're not watching it live, that comment's not going to age well. Welcome to Service Genie webinar number 1. We all need to start somewhere, so please allow us a little bit of slack in getting used to this particular medium. Just briefly to explain, the aim of these webinars is, well, it's not to tell you how great we are, even though clearly we think we are, but it's really to try and open up discussions about some of the topics and issues that we discuss with you guys on an almost daily basis in our conversations with you all, and hopefully we'll show you too that some of these challenges can be overcome and how they can be overcome. Our first topic today, as it says in the headline, is largely centered around reporting. The bane of every middle manager's life, I'm sure we'll all agree. And joining me today to talk about it is our Service Genie Solution Specialist, Steve Lindsay. Hi, Steve.
Good afternoon. Hello, everybody.
Steve's got vast experience of talking to people about this particular topic and about these kind of precise problems. And as a result, he's got a great deal of insight into how, well, I guess, kind of throwaway terms like reporting problems, how they manifest themselves in real life, and there's some of the things that we'll talk about today and focus on. So if we crack on with the main topic of it and have a look at the first slide that sets the agenda. Steve, bringing you into the conversation, obviously you and I have both been around this type of industry and around technology for a long time, and reporting is something that we talk about with everybody, isn't it? And it comes up a lot.
Yeah.
And I know that you were particularly keen to jump in on this particular topic, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I typically spend, or I used to spend my life on the motorway, visiting customers, service-led businesses, discussing their problems, issues, and 95% of the time, even if people have got quite advanced systems, reporting always comes up in the conversations as a challenge. And I think if we take a step back just out of the business world as such, I think people's expectations have changed over time, and in your own personal life, you can log on via your phone, log on to your bank, and understand where your money's going, and mine's going to Amazon a lot at the moment. So there's people's expectations of having information at their fingertips, quick and easy. Is there in everybody's life, but specifically back with respect to service-led businesses, I think there's always been reporting within businesses. So there's the old saying, you can't manage what you can't measure. So I think reporting, the need for reporting is very clear and has been for a long time. I think what's changed definitely in my career is people have started automate or automated a lot of manual processes. So by that nature, there's more information to pick and report on. The next phase is people have started to try and optimize or get the most out of their engineers out in the field. So they're now, a lot of their processes have been automated with mobile devices and tracking and location and so on. So there's more information there. And now I think the big topic with, again, a big proportion of people we talk to is this, and it's in the press everywhere, is Internet of Things, smart connected products.
Yeah, AI, big data, they're all kind of terms that you see everywhere. And my belief is most people don't really have a full grasp of it because it's quite imprecise in its nature, the term. And I guess we will kind of touch on bits like that today, won't we? And say, that is really how AI in the real world, in a service-led business, is kind of changing things or affecting things. But interesting, some of the things you said there. Yeah, in my kind of career, if you like, around technology, for what it's worth, I think the key thing that I found is reporting requirements were originally driven by the user of, say, the ERP system in this example, the piece of software. So in our customer in that respect. Now it feels like the reporting requirement is driven by the end user, by their customer. And so often I find that, like, when you're developing, but like, going slightly off topic here, but when we develop a product, actually what's changed is it's more advantageous for us to miss out our customer, go to the end user and say, what kind of reporting do you want? And then
Yeah,
actually we can go to the people that use our software and say, this is what your market wants. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think um, when we talk to our customers, a lot of their customers are making decisions, not necessarily the people that are the decision makers are making decisions on whether to select you or somebody else based on on KPIs and metrics that come via reports, and not necessarily have any contact day to day with your services. So yeah, that sort of driver has changed over time. And I guess it comes back to people's expectations, and our customers' expectations have changed as well. Yeah.
Yeah. On the slide that we're showing here, we can see that we've kind of tried to distill the problems that people talk to us about into three areas, and we'll elaborate on these because on their own they don't mean a great deal. One of the things that struck me when we put this slide together was actually when you're talking about, say, the first one, accurate and easy to access reporting, as we've termed it. I was trying to think of some kind of real life examples that I've come across to try and explain what that issue is, and then we can move on to how potentially you can solve it. And one of the examples that sticks in my mind was one that was happening quite recently, where and I think you were actually in the discussion as well, Steve. Was we were talking to, so we turned them an executive team member, or a board member, a senior management person, however you phrase it, and there was a situation where periodically they were going and asking a team leader, if you like, for some information to collate a report and deliver that information to them. And in their world, that was quite a simple thing. It's like, well, every month I ask for this report, and then a day or two later it comes back and I review it, and that's not a problem for me. Why is that an issue? But actually, it's the team leader in that example that the problem was. They're the ones that, when they're asked for the report, they literally, you could see their shoulders kind of sink, and you could feel that, you could see the disappointment in their face because they're thinking, oh my God, I've got to go away and do that task again. And when we actually spoke to them about it and got into the detail, what was really happening was the team leader spent the whole of the next 2 days bringing in other team members, other team leaders, to get bits of data from disparate systems, either accounting systems, ERP systems, paper-based systems, Excel spreadsheet-based systems, and they were getting different people to collate different data. And then that team leader had not only to get that information, but then put it together into a report that would hopefully make sense to the exec team member. And the thing that really kind of stood out was actually when he got under the skin of it and we spoke to all those individuals, there was a lot of assumption and guesswork around even bringing their bit of data to the party. So actually, the information that took 2 days and took so much effort that even when it was delivered to the exec team member, nobody really had any faith that the information was even accurate. Do
It's,
you that's kind of a typical thing that I hear? Is that similar for
yes.
you? Is that the kind of
Yes, so sort of people are stuck within the status quo, and that's how they've done things traditionally, and that's how they carry on doing it. And I think the exec team don't understand how much overhead it is to their business. And yeah, you see, like saying the service manager sort of get a sinking feeling. I've got to do this again. It felt like it was only a couple of days that I did it. So yeah, it's the whole thing. It's probably a process that soaks up time from people doing their day jobs, and probably has little value at the end
yeah?
of it as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a yeah, a nonsensical cycle really.
Well, let's, if you don't mind, Steve, jump into one of the
Yeah.
areas of our solution as an example, and explain to us what we're seeing here, just generally, and then let's talk about just that the basics of actually getting to a report and being able to manipulate that information so that it's usable.
Well, I think the first thing here is, rather than that process of asking for a report and then responding, I think now as people's expectations have changed, is that people want to consume information that's important to them. If it's that important, then you need to see it on a daily basis. So what we've got here within our desktop software is a suite of reports and KPIs and dashboard and heat maps which are relevant to me in my job role. So what's important for me to know in real time, every day, every minute, for me to be effective in my role. So obviously the information that you want to see, and whether you're a managing director, an operations director, a service manager, a sales manager, that's different information. So there's a couple of key things here: is having real-time information, but it's tailored to you and has value to you. So what I'm seeing here is, I've heard somebody term it like if my business, or if my department, if my team was a car, then this would be my dashboard of the things that are important to me. So we've got a raft of KPIs at the top here, but the important thing is I can add and subtract and get this to look and feel exactly how I want it. Um, and I think, just to come back or circle back a little bit to the beginning of the conversation about, it's often the customers are driving this information as well. Although we're looking at the desktop version of our software here, you can tailor the same KPIs, metrics, and information, and make that available to your customers, which is relevant to the customer, and also to the roles, job roles within the customer point as well. So this is what a dashboard. This can display any information that we've got in the system in any format. Um, what I'm going to do is so this is how typically people consume data day to day. But if there is sort of an activity you want to dive into a particular report, and apologies, I think the way the software renders through the webinar software may not be great, but it's much clearer on my screen. So we've got a lot of standard reports which are inbuilt within the system to try and save as much legwork for customers. So we've got a set of standard reports, so we're going to come back probably later if we get a chance to. We've got our own self-service capability as well. But one of the reports which we often get very good feedback from people is our revenue cost analysis. So what I'm going to do here is select just data over this year. So at a touch of a button, I'm going to select the time period we want to pull the data back from and apply that. And what it's giving us at a touch of a button is a report of our sales, our total revenue, the cost associated with that, and obviously the resulting profit and margin. So
That's kind
this,
of a snapshot of the health of the business at that moment, isn't it?
yeah, and I suppose this is more relevant for your managing director, your owner, for the management team. So they've got a high level snapshot of how the business is doing, and then they can also break down this by how much of my revenue is attributable to be selling parts, so how much is coming from labour or travel. And one thing that's, again, we get good feedback from a customer is, I often speak to people and they know they're making money, but they don't know which areas of their business are making money until they run the management reports, either end of the month, end of the quarter, and so on. So we have a concept of cost codes, which we won't go into too much detail today, but this at a high level allows you to split your business into different areas. So, how much money is warranty costing me? How are my service contracts doing? What are my chargeable repair work? So it's allowing people to understand what's profitable, but probably more important, what's potentially not
And
profitable.
I guess one of the keys there is too is that if you're being asked to or expecting a report to be given to you, or you have to generate a report periodically to present information like this. So if you're, say, in this example, because it's financial we're looking at, if you're either the FD or presenting the data to the FD, actually what we're saying is you don't need to, because the FD can actually go and review that, because this is,
Absolutely.
I'm assuming this is reporting potentially on information right up to the minute. So actually, they can look at the health of the business at any point in the month. They don't have to wait for the management accounts, which often take a number of weeks, or even in some cases a month or two, to actually be put together and presented.
Yeah, so it's a different concept. So yeah, the sales manager gets out of a job each month. He just tells the FD or the MD to go and look on his dashboards and circle it back. And before we just jump off this, you can also slice and dice the data behind here. So these are giving us headline figures, but you can break down the revenue, cost, and profit by a particular structure, different part of your business, whether that be a branch or a division. You can drill right down into customers. So how profitable is our best customer? And some people probably get nervous when they get some of that information back. They don't really understand where their profitable customers are. And you can drill down right into engineers. So who's
Mm,
generated the most value as an engineer or a particular equipment asset.
yeah.
So all of that sort of it's giving you snapshots, but it is something you can run instantly. So
Yeah, that all looks great, and it makes a great deal of sense, particularly if you can then, as you say, break down the data behind it to make it more precise. Whether it's related to a particular branch or whether it's related to a particular customer or even a site or a certain type of asset. Um, but looking at that, one of the things that strikes me, and this is often the feedback that people have been giving us for quite some time, is that still, in essence, reliant on somebody going to a reporting suite and saying, I want to run that report and I want to see that information. Where we talked earlier on about terms like AI, IoT, big data, and generally people's expectations around that kind of terminology is more towards the second point that we made in the original set of slides, which is real-time data, as I think we phrased it in there. So it's actually more about, this is, in my view, certainly how the world has changed, and what I wanted to move on to is getting away from that, having that set reporting suite, which in itself, okay, there's some flexibility in what we saw earlier, but it's still working within certain parameters and limitations, and it's all, most importantly, retrospective. So I'm looking back at
yeah,
what happened in those key positions, particularly at a middle management level. What I want to see is what's going on now. That's I think you and I were talking the other day, and you said to me that reports are timed and out of date if they're run retrospectively, and therefore, in many respects, if it's important information, you would kind of see yourself almost as always potentially being on the back foot, if that makes sense. So,
yeah.
how would we
Well,
how would we deal with it?
so a little bit more dive into that as a particular issue with customers. So the people actually running the business and doing the operations, it's things like how many services have we got upcoming, and have we got services that are late, or has a part arrived into the business for a specific job, um, or are our engineers not fully utilised? So these are sort of things where you want to be monitoring in real time what's happening, and being able to ideally pick up that something's going wrong or not being efficient before it's happened. So to nip it in the bud rather than the traditional report at the end of the month, something's gone wrong. You've probably lost face with the customer as well. So what I will do is swap back to the software, go back to the dashboard. So on that on that point of getting alerted about particular events which are important to me in my job role, and then being able to have the information to make the best decision on how to handle that. Um, the concept that we've had within the software is, rather than going to look for that information, but that information's pushed to the user. So we have a very similar to Facebook, I guess, is we have a notifications tab here. So this is about alerting me about the information, the events that are happening in the business, which I need to do something about. So these notifications can be tailored to my particular job role, to the information that I want to see. So there's a couple of examples here that we've had a customer sign off a job, and as part of that, he selected that he wasn't satisfied with the work we've done. So that's come back in real time. it gives me the option now of going away, understanding what might have happened with that job, talking to the customer directly, and instead of the issue festering or continuing with the customer, that we can address it quickly. So there's things
It
like
might sound extreme, but I guess in that particular example where you've got an unhappy customer who's said that they're unhappy when the job's been completed, is again, I suppose, if you, in the old way, if you report on that retrospectively and you did it monthly, actually they might have reported 3 or 4 jobs in that month, all of them as being recorded as unsatisfactory. And again, I'm labouring the point, but it's only at that point. It's only at the point when you're looking at it retrospectively you'd realise that that had happened. Um,
exactly.
would quick question, Steve? Would everybody see these notifications, or are they specific to individuals?
So they're tailored to your to the user specifically, so you can tailor. So there is a balance with there's so much information as that you can get information overload. So it's important to just get notifications on the things which are key to you in your job role. And not be bombarded where you lose the important alerts amongst a raft of other less important information. So yeah, again, it's about tailoring what you see to what's important to me, and that's something that's I want to be able to see. So that again is flexible and can be configured to me as a particular user. But what
Yeah.
I'd
Is that the same for things like? Sorry, Steve. I was just saying, is that the same for the things like the KPIs, that those tiles that we've got there?
Yeah, so if the KPIs, as you can see here, they work on a red, amber, green basis, depending on the severity of the conditions that are being met behind it. So this is something that's these are standard KPIs, but again, you can add these to your different home pages again, which is the information I want to see. But you've also got the ability in the software to generate your own KPIs as well. So you've got the standard KPIs, and then the ability to develop your own for your own specific requirements for the business. And again, so people typically may have this type of dashboard on their in the scheduling office or in the engineering office, so it's visual not just to the user as they're on the PC, but to the rest of the team about what's happening with the operation. So
Right.
people
Yeah.
can
So you might have an entire screen of KPIs that you've determined are relevant for, say, a particular department, and you could put that on a screen and make it visible to everybody, so that the chances of you spotting that, that particular tile reporting a particular item has gone red or it's gone amber, and actually then you got more chance of somebody seeing it and being able to act upon it as quickly as possible.
exactly, and it's the okay, something's gone wrong. We've got a red or amber tile here, so we need to do something. But what's actually gone wrong? So then you can drill down behind the KPI and then drill into the data behind that as well. So you've
Yeah.
got a lot of information. Sort of, all right, something's been alerted, but it's drilling down to the information to help us do something
Yeah.
about that alert as well.
It's really interesting that it's naturally come round to it, the conversation, that, because our third point on the original slide when we were talking about issues, as we can see there, was insight, and you've just actually moved into that, which is what naturally happens. So if we think it through logically, we've got data that's actually designed to highlight, it's either going to present some kind of management information that we're going to act upon, hopefully, and then also it's going to present us, as we've just seen, with some real-time information that also we can act upon. But actually, what we're interested in is where the successes and the failures are. Where are the improvements that we can make? Let's look at an issue. For example, we see that there's been there's a number of outstanding jobs, or there's too many outstanding jobs based on what we think is acceptable. The system can tell us that, but can it tell us, as you alluded to, why? So it's actually that insight that we need to then, we can see that there's a problem, but then what do we do after that? How do we get the information that we need to then affect the decisions that we make to make it better?
Yeah, and I think this is probably, I know we've got the background of COVID and so on. So there's the value in the information and get that real time it's more now than ever to make sure that we're streamlining our business, that we're not wasting costs, that we're not wasting money, and we're making sure the money's going on to people's wages instead of down the drain. So, but it's the insights which helps you do that, and what the information behind the headline numbers, but also potentially can give you competitive advantage as well. So it's that real understanding and making the most of the data, which I find is really interesting. So I really like the capability. If we drill down into the dashboard here, we've got a pie chart which is showing our jobs by priority. So these priorities are user defined, but interestingly, we've got some critical work here. So we've got 9 critical jobs. So what's actually behind those critical jobs? So is there a particular customer? So out of those 9 jobs, actually, over sort of 2/3 of them, 66% of them, are with a specific customer within Leeds City Council. So that gives me some alarm bells. So what's behind that? Is there a particular piece of equipment that we're having a problem with? It looks actually like it's spread across a number of pieces of equipment, but if I want to drill down behind, let's have a look at asset 7. What's happening there? Did we fix it? Did we fix it first time? So we drill down. Has it affected our customer? Well, actually, we've had two jobs there, and we didn't fix it first time. Right, what could be that? Have we got a description of what actually happened at the time? Is there some insight into what the particular issue was? It was no power, or the doors were stuck. Okay, no power. Was the particular engineer that was working on the job that it might be worth going to speak to? So if you've got hundreds of engineers, it's Adrian Clark. So very quickly, you can drill down. You've got critical jobs, but then you can get a much more understanding rather than having to go through each individual job and drill down in the different modules in the software. You can get some real understanding of what's going on just by drilling into the chart.
So yeah, some of the things we were talking about earlier, it occurred to me that a lot of our customers have things like SLAs, so they have a commitment to the customer contractually to be on site within a particular time or to fix within a particular time. And I guess that's it's a combination, isn't it? I was thinking if you follow that through logically, you've got the notification that, say, an SLA job has been raised and the commitment of when you've got to be there. And actually, if you've got a number of those or you've got a resource problem, you can use that insight to be able to drill into that information to quickly be able to identify who are the right people to send to the right jobs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and it's we've always spent half an hour showing sort of talking about the benefits of reporting and the value behind that, but there's the statement, I'm not sure it's accurate, around statistics, damn lies, and statistics. And so you've got the headline numbers, but often you need to drill down to different areas behind that data to get a real understanding of what's coming. And this is coming from an instance I've had recently whereby one of the companies I've been talking to were monitoring the utilization of their engineers. So how much time were they spending fixing stuff, and then their productivity. So how many times, how many individual errors or repairs they made, how many times did they fix things. And they were sort of lauding and heralding the engineers in the team, which had a higher productivity, but they were fixing more things quickly, so they're doing more jobs. And they were giving loads of stick to the engineers that are only doing a couple of fixes a day. But actually, over time, when they analysed the data, they were having to go back to the equipment where the guys were doing fixes quickly. So the information behind it should have actually been heralding the guys that were doing had lower productivity, but they were doing a better job. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's interesting. I find all that stuff really interesting when you get these headline numbers, which are important, absolutely, to see the performance of the business. But it's the sort of things behind it, the detail, where that's the real power, I guess, with having all this information in a system and being able to report on it.
Going back to the power and going back to the software that we were looking at, what's the power in the engine that's driving that? So we saw you focus and drill down on a particular report there. How did we get that report? I mean, one of the things that historically I found is people tend to, as we all do, because it's human nature, we accept things, we accept the situation. It's like, you know, the handle of a kitchen cupboard comes off and it's really inconvenient for the first week. And then it becomes normal, and in 6 months' time, you've still not fixed the handle. And it strikes me that reporting and maybe ERP in general tends to be similar in that there's an acceptance of its limitations. So if I've got a set reporting suite and that's all I've got access to, then I don't aspire to do anything else or have anything above that. So if I want that information, how do I make that information available to me?
Yeah, I think you raise a really good point there, and I guess what one part of that point is that we're traditionally, because of the way the nature of ERPs work, it's either difficult to get the information out, you have to get it out and use another system to analyze it, or you have to go back to the vendor and say, well, actually, we need this report or we need this report. And the vendor says, right, we're going to charge you a few £100 to do that. It takes them a couple of weeks to do the report. So then you get in charge for it. So you get in charge for a report, which by the time it arrives and it has limited value. So within some of the reports that I showed on my dashboard have been generated by me personally using the self-service reporting tool. So you've got it's a self-service analysis tool. It's more than just reporting because you've got that drill down capability. So very quickly, I'm just conscious of our time here, but I'll show you how quickly it is to build up one of those visualizations, one of those pie charts that are on the dashboard here. So the important point for me, and I think this is a big step change, is that anything in the system you can report on. So even user defined fields, so things which you've designed specifically, added fields within the system, you can report on. But very simply, if I was so I'm selecting the data here, so I can select any data point within the system. So I'm selecting information which is attributable to the job, and then I can carry on down various different layers of information that's associated to that job. But for the purposes of today, I'm just going to select priority and bring that data across into the visualization tool. So I've very quickly selected the data that I want to see, want to analyze. I'm going to close that off and bring that into the visualization window. And now I've got a various different options of how I want to see that information. So the obvious of bar charts, line charts, heat maps, and so on. But I'm going to select a pie chart here, and very simply,
Steve,
sorry.
just before you do that, just because you're the solution specialist here, I'm very much the layman. So just to confirm, what I think you've done there is you're saying that there are all of the fields, data fields are available to us in the system. What you've done is you've selected the data that you want to report about, which you've dropped into that table below you. And now what you're doing is setting up an X and a Y axis and choosing how you want that data to be displayed to you. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, a very simple level. That's how what we're doing here. Yes. So um,
Okay.
I'm selecting the data, such as the account, over to the y-axis, so the x-axis, and I'm going to bring across the priority over this side. So I'm just dragging the data across into each of the axes, and then it's gone away. And very quickly, we've got a pie chart which is familiar to the dashboard that gives us the drill down capability, where we get that insight. So within a couple of half a minute, I've generated a report
Yeah.
which you can see from the 5 minutes ago has a lot of value behind it. And there is a lot of extra functionality in how you can manipulate the data and so on. But for the purposes of today, that's just an example of how quickly and easy it is to do something yourself, which traditionally you have to go and pay your solution provider to generate for you.
Yeah. Well, when we talked earlier and we again thrown those terms around like IoT and big data, that is it in real terms, isn't it? Absolutely. That's talking through a process of how do we access meaningful information that we can act upon and have faith in it, and how do we make sure that as the needs of the business and the individual change, how do we make sure that that information is always available to them and isn't too difficult doesn't involve going back to their own ERP supplier or their own IT team and getting them to write a report, which, as you alluded to earlier, by the time they get it, probably they don't need anymore. So
Yeah.
I think that's been really interesting and given us a really good insight into what we set out to kind of elaborate on. So thanks for that, Steve. Conscious of time, so we're coming toward the end of the webinar now, and I just want to say thank you for your input. I think it's been really useful. It's been a really interesting conversation.
Okay.
Hopefully, you've all enjoyed it and got something from it. If you do have any questions, then by all means, let any of us know. Steve, is there anything you would like to add before we sign off?
Yeah, I think it just I've really enjoyed the session, and I could talk all afternoon about it. So, but I think if these issues resonate with you, sound familiar, just pick up the phone or contact us. I would be very keen to have a brief and honest discussion on some of the things you're having problems with, and whether we can help or not, as sometimes is the case as well. So yeah, we'd welcome yeah, your contact.
Great. Thanks for that, Steve. Thanks everyone for watching and participating, and hopefully we'll see you on another webinar soon. Bye for now.